So I have my bearing cage. Here's my bearing that goes in here. What I find interesting is this bearing actually has a slot in it for a ring clip on it, yet it doesn't spec one out in the parts breakdown, but it wouldn't need one because there's this lip here that's going to run up against. So kind of an interesting little twist of things. So I'm just going to tap that in, but before I do that, let me put a little lubricant in here just so we're not putting stuff together dry. And I'm going to put it so that ring is out and just pushed in real nice and easy. Then I'm going to take, because this is going to go in, and it's going to have all of these shims. All of these shims were on this. I'm putting all the shims back on just the way I took it apart. The only one thing that I still have to do is I have to put my little handy dandy O-ring on here. I'm going to put, I'm going to do it this way. Let me get this hammer out of my way. I'm going to put a little lubrication on this O-ring because I don't want to put it on dry. Not a ton, just a little something so it'll slip on. And let me wipe my hands off. I'm going to put them right back in the oil. I'm just going to take and roll this O-ring on here best that I can, and there it goes. And it has that little slot in there that goes on. Like I said, it's very confusing to me how this went, because it mentions these as kind of being an option. And I just thought that was weird that they'd be an option, because I don't see how it wouldn't leak without that there. But who knows, maybe you guys will be able to send me some reasoning behind it. So there we go, I got my shims on, got my bearing in, I've got my O-ring in there, and I can go ahead and let me get this so you guys maybe can see a little bit better. Let me position this up. Might make it easier on me. I'm going to put a little bit of, I think I'm forgetting something. I guess I'm not. No, I feel like I'm forgetting something here. No, I'm not. I'll put that like so. So as I'm looking at this breakdown is definitely slightly different from what I have here, which is always interesting because you always get different stuff. It's interesting because this says it has a nut on the end of this, and I don't have a nut for it. I actually have this little bolt here. So what I'm guessing happens is this guy goes on there. Let me put a little bit on here. Again, assembly as you go, figuring it out. We put a little oil on this so we're not going together dry. This guy goes on like so. That bearing goes in there. And then this guy, which it shows a nut in my picture, this guy goes in here. So obviously there was a change in the manufacturing process. It's not noted since the breakdown was made. I'm going to get the wrench to tighten that up. So hang with me. That just popped out on me. Okay. So this This gets bolted from the outside as well. This cap goes on here when we're all said and done. So let me take and tighten this up. I remember taking this off now. I gotta find something to jam this gear as I tighten this up. Let me grab something real quick. I'm going to take a pair of vice grips and just grab it so I'm not grabbing the teeth. I don't want to harm my teeth. I just want to grab the side of it here. I'll tighten that just a bit so it doesn't slip. Okay, now I have that grab. Now I can flip this back up so it's a little easier. And we'll take and tighten this down. It is a 9/16 bolt. And I'm curious, I know there are a couple different belt pulley assemblies for these machines. They have two different part numbers, but only one is in the breakdown that I have. So if you guys out there have something different, you've come across something different, I'd really be interested to hear what you guys have come across, because I always think that's one of the most interesting things is the design changes that happen through the manufacturing process of the tractor, and trying to figure out why did they make those changes, what was the reasoning behind it. So again, part of the fun of putting these together and doing this. So everything turns as smooth as it should. Let me put this on its end. I'm going to make sure all my holes are lined up. I'm going to grab one of my bolts, make sure those shims are lined up. So the only thing I should have left is my gasket that I made, which is interesting because it has this little notch in it. And I don't know what that little notch is for, but it also has this little notch in it. And this notch goes around, there's an oil hole right there. That definitely goes around that so we can get oil through here. So I'm going to make sure I put that in the right position. And this guy is wanting to move around on me a whole bunch here. I've lost my holes, I've lost my shims. Complete disaster. There we go. So let me put this in place. Throw my cap on. And let me put my 3 bolts in here. See if I can get there. There we go. There's one. Make sure I got the right ones. I think it's these. Let me see if it tells me what length the bolts are. Cap screws, they're 1 3/8. Let me measure and make sure that I'm using the correct ones. Grabbed my trusty machinist ruler, and glad that I did, because of course 50-50 chance did I get it right. No, I was using the ones that were too short. So here I have the 1 3/8 bolt now. Before I take this one out, which is wrong, I'll put this one in. So get that one in, take the short one out. Get all 3 of these in. There we go. And where'd my 9/16 wrench go? Here it is. And we'll just snug this up. I won't sock it home just yet. We'll go back through after we get everything together. Make sure that I don't have to take anything apart, because that is highly possible, having never done this before. This is a little bit of a balancing act. At least I feel confident that this isn't going to leak now, having that O-ring in there. At least I hope it doesn't leak. I don't know. Maybe it'll make it worse. I don't think so. Go ahead, make fun of me for my runs here in my paint. Ken, the producer, pointed that out to me as we were putting things together here today. You're never going to see that. That'll get sanded flat. I'm going to hit this with a primer. We'll go into the painting later. All right, I have that tightened down to where I feel satisfied with it. See if I can salvage my fingers. Everything still turns as it should. Success. That's that shaft. Now we need to put in the belt pulley shaft itself. Now this is going to have to go together as an assembly, and then the whole thing will bolt in on this face. The trick is I have a bearing, this bearing here, that goes inside. So that might be a little tricky, but I think the whole assembly, when I put it together, it'll be able to slide in. We might need to tap it in a little bit with a hammer, but I'm confident that it's going to go in okay. So I'm going to get ready to get that all together, and we'll get that put in. All right. I'm looking at where we are right now. I'm concerned about where my arm is, but if I have this shifter arm in the wrong place, and you international guys right now, if I have it in the wrong place, I can hear you yelling at me. If I need to, I can take and move this and change this over. That's not going to be a problem, but I'm just concerned that I don't have that in the right place right now, because I want to say that it should hang out that way, but I'm not sure. I'm going to go with where I have it based on how the picture is. That's where it's pointing, but maybe I am not correct on that. We're going to find out, obviously, aren't we? So with that, now it's time to put the belt pulley shaft in. So this has to go in as an assembly, as I mentioned. So I have my shaft here. It's going to be pretty simple. I have my bearing cage, which is right here. I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on here, just so I'm not, again, putting a dry seal on here. Hopefully it'll help it slide on. I don't want to ruin the seal at all. Appearance-wise, when I was taking this apart, I would guess that this leaked when it was originally on this tractor. There was a lot of oil and grease leaking off of it, so I'm pretty sure that it leaked. So I have this felt seal here that is not in my parts breakdown, yet it came off of this tractor, and I'm pretty certain that this goes on first, and there's room for it to be in here, as you can see. So there's no doubt about it that that's what goes in there. So I'm putting that on first, then I'll put my bearing cage on, and hopefully that will slip on through that seal real nice. There it goes. Beautiful. And now that that is on, let me see where we're at. I need to put on my little O-ring here that I had to make, as you remember. Let me just put a little bit of lubricant on that so it's not going on dry. And I'm pretty impressed with myself on this for having to make those. I just bought a O-ring kit that allows you to assemble your own O-rings. And it sends you a bulk length of O-ring in various sizes, and it sends you a little jig with it. And what you do is you put it in the jig, you cut the end square, and you actually take and glue it together. I was very amazed at how easy it went together and how successful it's been being in one piece and not breaking. I thought for sure the glue would let go. I would be snapping O-rings here in front of you, give you guys something to laugh at with me, but it has held pretty well. So now I have the 3 shims that came off of here. I'm not going to change or remove these. Everything on this had turned smoothly originally. So I've got those. I'm making sure that the slot in those shims are mating up with the oil hole that's up here. Very important. We want oil to be able to get through. I have my shims on. Make sure I'm doing this. Actually, I don't want my shims. No. Yeah, I want my shims on. God, this is confusing. So now that I've got that on, I need to put on, this goes on last, but I need to put this bearing on. And this bearing will go down inside of this assembly. So there is a notch on this, which does have a ring that goes on it. So this will only go so deep. It can bottom out down below, but we don't want that to happen. I'm going to take this over to my vise real quick. Let me put this snap ring on here, and then we'll take and drive this down. Give me 2 seconds to do that. I'll be right back. So all I did is I just went and got a screwdriver to do this, and hopefully I'll be able to do this without stabbing myself. But I'm just going to put this ring in the slot here and see if I can just get it to go on with the screwdriver just by going around it and opening it up. Should work. Famous last words, right? So there we are. It is in. It's exactly what we want. So now, put a little lube on this. Somebody just checked out on us. So I've put lube in this bearing, and it's amazing how these things quiet up when they get a little lubrication. And the bearings were all still in good shape. Ball bearings submerged in oil all the time, I swear they can go forever. So now I've got this assembly together. We're going to take and we'll pop this down on here. We got to center this guy up. There we go. Wow. It'd be nice if it would just pop in. I'm probably not going to get that lucky. I never seem to. But let's see if we can just press it in with our thumbs. Yeah, it's close to going in. Let's see. Give it a hand here with my dead blow. I don't have the best surface here to hammer on either. This is bouncing, but it's going in. Almost there. Let me put it over here on something solid. Still not solid enough. There we go. I took it over to the vise and had something solid to strike on, and that drove it down where it needed to be. All right. So we got that much of it together. The next part that needs to go on is this big spacer here, which I thought was really interesting because it fits loose on this shaft, which is very interesting. And I'll show you how it works here in a second. Let me just put some lubrication on here. Fits nice and loose on it. Just the spacer. I guess that's all it needs to do. I guess it doesn't need to be machine tight, does it? So we've got the spacer on. The next thing that I need to put on is this gear. Now this gear has this bearing on it, and it has a snap ring on it. Probably hard for you to see. It's one big assembly. I'm just going to throw a little lube in this bearing as well because it was cleaned and dry. And it spins nice and easy. And we're going to put a little lubrication on here as well. This rides on a key, which I need to put the key in. I almost forgot about that. Let me see. Let me see if I can do this without pulling the spacer off. I'm going to need to. Let me go drive that in at my workbench. There we go. So I have my key in here. I had to take it over my workbench and drive it in. You can see it right there. And then I have this bearing gear assembly that needs to go on like such. And I may need to go back over to my workbench to drive this on, because I almost want to say that I took this off on my press. Maybe I need to put it back on at the press. Let's see what I can do.